Hi, this is Alfie Whattam, the founder and the host of the London Technology Podcast. Thank you all for joining us today. We've got a special guest, Diogo. Thank you so much for taking the time to join. How are you today?
I'm good. Kids are back at school.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, look, on this podcast, we speak to various digital and technology leaders to get insights, ideas into, I suppose, what's happening at the moment in the world of the London tech market and the wider community. But just for people that don't know who you are and your background and what you're doing, can you just give us a little bit of context in terms of who you are and what you do and that sort of thing?
Sure. So I'm currently the Cto of Rec Technologies. We're a London-based firm. Our offering is mainly aimed at insurance firms that want to improve their due diligence processes. So we collect data from many sources, not just in the UK, but also internationally, so that you know that you're dealing with a company that you can deal with from a due diligence point of view.
Awesome. So you're a CTO, you've been in the industry for a long time. You've worked in various industries, various types of roles and different teams and environments. A lot of people that watch this podcast, they're new to the industry. It's one of their first tech roles, or they're just graduating, or maybe they're a developer or whatever, and they're trying to eventually get to a CTO type position or a leadership role, or just get ahead in their tech career. What advice would you give to people though that are in tech and they want to grow, advance, be promoted, one day get to where you are? What overall tips and guidance would you give to those types of people?
First one would be for you to find out what you really want. Sounds quite philosophical, the idea of know yourself, but I think it's key because our industry, fortunately, is super diverse and huge. So there's space for everyone. And especially if you're in London, you get spoiled for opportunities. So the best way to enjoy London is for you to know which opportunities to take. And sometimes in your life that might be tricky because you decide to move jobs or you have to find a job quickly. But the best way is for you to understand what you want. So there's a little book which I really love called Manage Oneself by Peter Zucker. And he talks about that. And when I read that book, I was still in the stage of my career that I thought this kind of positive thinking was not for grown-ups. And seeing that written there, that you have to identify with a company to be productive, really ticked. So from my experience, I spent 1 year at Reuters as a business analyst, and that was a waste of a year if you think about my career, because I move away from engineering altogether. But it was the best year of my career in the sense of that confirmed what I was all about. So after that year, I understood that that's not for me. I don't want to be a business analyst or a project manager. Word documents and PowerPoint don't compile. They're not objective and tangible enough. That doesn't mean they're not good. It just means that it's not the thing that's for me. And so then I went back to become a developer. I had luck, which you always need. You always need luck. But I had enough luck to go back to my previous team and be able to lead that team. So that was my first experience managing a team. And that was another confirmation that that's what I liked. So it's tough. If you're starting your career, it's very hard to say what you like because you have to experience things before you know it. But being a CTO should not be your end goal just because it's glamorous. It should. You can, if it's the money, you can earn the same amount of money being a contractor, right? So you shouldn't go that for that. You should think of what you want. You might love technology and want to be the best developer you can be, or you might want to talk in conferences, or you might like the leadership side and then go for the CTO role. But even that, so now if we're restricting ourselves to the CTO role. Then you have CTOs of massive companies, and I'm sorry, I don't have any advice. I have no idea how to get there. But London is great in terms of a very exciting startup ecosystem. So for me, that being foreigner and not having any network in here and having to adapt to the way of working here, that's what I ended up going for, using that startup area where you can get a very glamorous role, which at the end of the day doesn't mean anything. It means you're coding still. It just means you code and you have to configure your cloud system and you have to do your security. But that's actually what I like. So again, if you want to be a CTO, I still would invite you to think, what kind of CTO do you want to be? I really enjoy being a CTO that still does a bit of code, that's very hands-on, that has to deal with a lot of different challenges, not just sitting down and thinking about strategy and going and play golf and all that beautiful imagery we like to talk ourselves into. But you might be different. So you might rather be working in a massive company managing 200 people without the fancy title, or you might want the fancy title in a startup because everything changes every day, and that's what makes you buzz.
Awesome. No,
so that was a very long answer to a very short question.
I liked it. I especially liked what you mentioned about Peter Drucker's book. I like Peter Drucker. He said once, "What gets measured gets managed," and I think it's a brilliant quote because it allows you to, whether you're working in tech or anything, in terms of looking at the different components of your job, breaking them down into little bite-sized things, and then thinking, how do I make this quantifiable? How can I measure this? Because if you then focus on measuring it, it improves, it gets better, and that's what's going to make you advance, in terms of your career and also your life. So it's a good quote, it's a good book, Managing Oneself. I can't remember if the quote's from that book or it's from a different book he wrote.
I think it's from a different one.
Yeah, but great author nonetheless, Peter Drucker.
But it's quite important in this context. I think one of the interesting things of the new way of working is that little statement, what gets measured gets managed, is the difference whether or not you can work from home. Because it was very easy for me to get my teams to work from home.
Sure.
When this happened, because we use all the standard Scrum techniques, right? So everything gets measured. It's very easy. So it was very easy for me to go back to my CEO and show him that we're still doing our jobs and everything was nice and dandy. But in other areas of the business, it's much more ambiguous. So it's harder to measure. And I'm very happy I'm not on the other side of the business at the moment.
Yeah, no, me too.
That's the biggest challenge, because everybody wants to work from home a few days a week, right? So for you to get allowed to do that, then your managers have to think how they can, make sure that they're getting the value they want from you.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, after all of this. At the time we're recording this, vaccine is going swimmingly. See some hurdles, but it looks like in the next couple of months, we'll all be, back to some level of normality. Fingers crossed. How have you found working from home? Was it the first time that you did this in your career, or have you done it before? And have you learned anything in terms of perhaps advice to others that might have found the whole process a little bit more challenging than perhaps you did?
So I've worked from home stretches of time, but not permanently. So my last two teams, we allowed people to to have prolonged holidays. Well, can't call it holidays. They could travel for prolonged periods of time and work from home, right? And obviously that was especially convenient for me. My wife's a teacher, so she has lots of holidays, and I like to be spend the summer in Portugal. So to enable that meant that the processes were in place. So when the lockdown happened, for us was just business as usual. Most of the time we had, although if 80% of the team might be in the office, but we still had to do a Teams meeting to do the stand-ups and to do all the other ceremonies. So from that point of view, it was easy. From the point of view of not dealing with any human being outside my family for a long period of time, that was very hard for me psychologically. And it's very funny because, well, not funny, curious. It's very curious to see when you're talking to other people over Teams or Zoom or whatever in the evenings, to friends, you get this sensation that all household has somebody that's coping very well and somebody that's not coping very well.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
And it seems like all my friends just seem like it's always one of the couple is doing well, the other one isn't. It's almost like we chose each other as to complement each other. So yeah, I really miss the social aspect, really, really do. So we've decided to. It was a good accident to have, but the lease of our office expired in the middle of the first lockdown. So very early we had to make a decision. What do we do? Should we save money and then invest that money in parties and other good stuff with having people working from home primarily, or should we keep the same kind of office and then just wait for this to go away? And we did that question very early, like 2 weeks in. And 2 weeks in, everybody wanted to go back to the office. Everybody wanted their desks, same thing. 2 months in, and nobody wanted to go back to the office full time. And I think that's the experience of most people I spoke to. So so now we have a much nicer office, which is much smaller. There's not enough desks for everyone, so you have to book to go in. But the idea is that you shouldn't go in just to work. You should go in because there's a team meeting that day. You're having a workshop with a colleague, that sort of thing. So it's a different approach, completely different approach to the office. I'm a bit scared still because I want to go there every week when this is over, because I feel that being close to people energizes me and makes me more productive. And that was also an interesting experience about the lockdown, was finding out stuff about yourself, and this limit of how much time I can spend without socializing with people outside my household was an interesting one to find.
Yeah, well, luckily almost over. We'll see. But yeah, interesting way that you've gone about it then. So you've kept the office, but you've downsized it, made it a nicer place. So you're still going to keep up that hybrid model of working, but with a remote first approach. Sort of interesting. Obviously, different companies doing different things. You get some people, we saw it in the news a week or two ago. I think it was the CEO of Goldman Sachs or one of the banks, saying that working from home is an aberration and everybody needs to get back to the offices sort of ASAP. And then you've got the other extreme where you've got the big tech companies essentially making work from home, work from anywhere a complete policy moving forward. And I personally think both are a little bit on the extreme edge, and there needs to be a balance and some hybrid working approach. So it's similar to what you've referenced there in terms of what you guys are doing. But it will be interesting to see what happens these next couple of years.
But I have no idea. I have no idea about banking. I have no idea what their day-to-day job is. As a consultant, I've worked in many banks, and I still don't understand what they do on what the bulk of the business does on a day-to-day basis. So it might be the right assessment. I have no idea. So I can tell you that my experience with dealing with tech people, and obviously I'm one of them, but I'm not a very usual one, I have to say, is that they want to work remotely. So my team was the first one to say that we love this. This is forever, and most of them are very happy to work from home all the time and to go to the office once a month. but I'm not. So I can see that in our industry, most companies will go that direction, because that's kind of the typical person that likes to be a developer, also likes is a bit more introverted, so like doesn't need that social interaction all the time, or is happy with an interaction online. And I can imagine other types of businesses will just have people that are very different and that are extroverts by default and would struggle substantially if they go all the way
yeah I think you're
working
right.
from home.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's industry, it's company, it's role specific. I mean, we can't put a blanket slate over it, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the majority of companies don't do, what happens, what doesn't happen. But yeah, food for thought anyway. I suppose one other thing I was keen to ask you before we wrap up is on the topic of like cutting edge tech, on futuristic innovations. That could be your world of insurance and insurtech, or it could be a different market entirely. But is there anything that gets you excited at the moment, that gets you passionate, that you think is going to have a big impact on the future and that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, there's stuff that impact my business. Anything about deep learning, the AI algorithms that promise to find patterns and other magical information within big data sets. We're really looking into that. We're really interested in that because we have a big data set. It's a data. Our data set, because it has to do with the diligence, is much more textual than like a financial data set that's all about numbers, right? Or a sales order management system. So it's a bit trickier. We've done some naive analysis and we couldn't get any thing from there yet. But I think as those tools progress, we will find some interesting data there. So that's something for later this year for us to look into. And then obviously you have the things that don't relate to my industry at all, like Oculus Rifts and virtual reality, augmented reality. I find it amazing. I was quite skeptical. Obviously, if I'm in the industry, I was a big gamer when I was a kid. I remember going to uni. I went to uni to study biology first, and then made the change to computer science. But when I was in biology, I kept asking my friends in computer science, why were they not just, why did they have other career plans that didn't include programming computer games? And now I know why. Sorry, big aside. But obviously that gaming interest is transversal to people that work in computer science, I think.
I've got a friend, okay, who worked at Oculus like before Facebook bought them. He's one of the early employees, okay, and we catch up on a regular basis. And he told me, this is years ago, that he believed by I can't remember the year, 2025, 2030, it was sometime around there. He says day to day we'll spend a significant amount of our time living in VR, whether that's Oculus or a different platform. He was more for the VR rather than the AR, which I suppose Oculus tends to be a little bit more of a VR platform nowadays. But I mean, you might have seen the movie Ready Player One. That's obviously the extreme end, but yeah, I mean, living in VR, it's not just a game anymore. It's going to become daily life in many respects.
Well, yeah. Could we replace the office with that? We've been talking about how we should work from home or not work from home. Maybe there's definitely an opportunity there, at least to try it out, right? I've used an app to do like Zoom sessions, right? But this was developed for scientific conferences.
Okay.
Can't remember the name of it. And it was like a very old game. You had a little map and you wandered around. and every time you met somebody, you could, their face would come up, and you would have a chat just like we have now. But you could move away, and then you stopped seeing her and hearing her. So you could group up to 12 people in a chat if you were together physically, right? And then you could move away. So that the idea was that you were in a big conference room. You could go to a table, talk to the guy that's presenting some paper, and then go to another. So that was a very simple way of kind of replicating what going to a scientific conference would be like. But maybe with VR, then you can get to the next level. You can get an office all in VR. It's scary, isn't it? It's scary and exciting at the same time.
Well, this is why I do this podcast, to try and get these ideas and insights from people like yourself that are actually living in, because the general public, people that are not working in tech, they have ideas about what's possible, what's more of a dream. And then, speaking to people like yourself that actually work in the industry, and then like my friend Oculus, and when they're talking about how, in 5 years we'll all stick on a headset in the morning for our morning team meeting, and then there's an avatar of that person, there's an avatar of your there's an emoji of your boss, and then boom, whatever you move is how the avatar moves, and so on. So it's interesting for you to say that you think VR and that application of VR is going to be such have a such use case in the not so distant future, because it's the science fiction movies are becoming science reality in many respects.
And then you need a pint and a little thing that emits the smell of old pint in the floor, and you have a pub experience at home.
You do. One way that people could solve this wait, but I believe it's 70 something days now until they're open. So I'm sure the people in London watching are counting them down.
I don't want to replace that.
No. We won't replace that one. But it was really good to speak to you, though, Diogo, and thanks so much for your time and your ideas and insights. I found that useful, so hopefully people watching did as well. So I'll tag you on LinkedIn and the channel, so people can reach out if they've got questions or anything to yourself. But thank you so much for taking the time, and thanks for everyone for watching. And obviously, we'll see you next time on the next episode.
Thank you.